Samantha, may I have a motion to accept that?
Motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? The opposition? Very good. You have the minutes from the last meeting, or were there any additions, adjustments? May I have a motion to receive the minutes? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposition? Public comment, any sign up or? Okay. All right, so it's on to you, Wayne. Well, I guess it's, Nickel, second first, with the SMAC, liaison.
Yeah, so there, it's been a little bit light on sort of the training. Then has a short one, we'll give a preview of, upcoming to start, dabbling into the falls, like Falls Fest, preview, both Wayne and, then just go from there. That's just a little preview of events to come.
Yeah, so with the holiday schedules and just the new council turnover, it's been really light, just zoning load on the city council and also in planning commission. So nothing really of interest. Everything we talked about last month was all approved by the time we talked about it last month. So like nothing really new came up. As me and Wayne were talking about, February is looking pretty busy, so I'm sure we'll have some coming up in February. So, but there is one that is not yet to the commission, to the planning commission or to the council, and it's in the Falls Lake watershed, and it's one of the ones I think we kind of heard rumors about the last time we talked about a rezoning case in the Falls Lake watershed, that there was some more coming. And so this one is actually at the neighborhood meeting stage. In case you guys didn't know, like zoning cases have meetings with the adjacent neighbors before they come to planning commission or city council. So that's kind of where they are. And this kind of got on our radar from the city council, which would be for this area. This area is technically in the ETJ, so it would have to get annexed. But it's in District A, which is Councilor Mitchell Silver's area. And just to give you a refresher, this is our water supply watersheds across the city, Swift Creek in the south, the urban here, the Wakefield Bedford area, and then the Falls Lake watershed here in this area near Strickland Lake. So this case is actually near Falls Lake and Honeycutt. If you guys know the area where Falls Lake and Strickland Road kind of split off right here, the shopping center right here, and 540 to the north, and the site is right here. It's currently zoned R1, and they are proposing to go to R6. As I said, they're meeting with the adjacent neighbors. We have given them examples of past conditions for stormwater, for GSI and other Falls Lake watershed cases that we've seen. So, but there's been no official conditions or anything like that yet. So nothing to react to. Just want to get this on y'all's radar. And as I said, Councilor Silver has already asked the planning department and our division about information that we might have at the end. But there's a church north of here, and most of it is residential. And this is the Bentry South neighborhood here, which is one of our first kind of neighborhoods that was approved once we had the Falls Lake watershed rule back in the 80s. So those people know a lot about the watershed regulations, things like that. So this is just kind of an aerial view. You can see the church north of there and everything else. This is Lafayette Village, which this area here is outside the watershed and drains south to their open space is the only area that's in there that drains to follow the watershed. But that's all the info I have on this case. I'll take any questions.
Sorry, just a,
Yeah.
for my information, R6, does that mean like an apartment or?
It could be 6 units per acre. So that's probably not apartments. They could do less dense townhomes. Usually what we see for apartments is R10 and above. So, and sorry, it's 6 units per acre. I apologize. That's where our zoning is based on, usually with, like the R1 now is a 1 unit per acre. So that would be going 1 unit per acre. So, thank you. Think about that.
How big are the lots kind of around them?
They're pretty big. there, because this lot is 14 and a half acres, so they're all at least over half an acre and some of 1 acre, so. Yeah. Except for Lafayette Village, like I said, all their density is outside the village. Any questions? Like I said, nothing really to talk about yet, but we will be seeing this, I'm sure, with some more conditions and things like that. All right, well, thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Wait, yeah, thank you. A few announcements and staff updates. Just wanted to say Samantha Crop did officially get reappointed to her second two-year term to the commission by city council. A little bit of a preview to give you all heads up to start thinking our commission elections will be in March. Our current chair will not serve a term past April. So we will need to elect a new chair, and new vice chair and new planning liaison in March. Just everyone start thinking about that. In terms of stormwater staff, we have a promotion to announce. I think you all are familiar with Claudia White. So Claudia has been promoted to senior asset management engineer. She's been working in the asset program as liaison with transportation since joining Stormwater in 2021. She graduated from NC State with a degree in biological and agricultural engineering, and she is due to receive her professional engineer's license very soon in this year. And so she will continue to work as liaison and manage the stormwater rehabilitation program special project. Claudia. And we have, excuse me, a new staff announcement. Stephanie and joining Raleigh Stormwater. You may recognize Stephanie as she has been a consultant working for us for many years, and so she's very familiar with many aspects of our program. She will lead the watershed planning, GIS, and asset management program. She has 19 years of experience and has worked with many of our programs over the years as a consultant. She has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Florida Institute of Technology and a master's degree in environmental science engineering from University of Florida. Will be here. Anyway, it's involved. Okay. A few high priority topics. Just as a brief recap, we did have the community conversation sessions back in December. And we had good turnouts. Those conversations, you may recall, were in support of the comprehensive plan update that the Planning and Development Department has been running. So there were 2 meetings in December. One, we brought in Ted Brown, a national speaker from Biohabitats, gave a high-level kind of national expertise overview of stormwater in support of that meeting. And in addition, we had a tabling session, an open house tabling session. A number of quite a few stormwater staff came and had table presentations and information about all of the various stormwater programs that we have. And that was well attended and successful. And then the second evening, Father Taylor and I had a conversation about the state of Raleigh Stormwater, state of the programs that we run. I think that was well received. Any comments you'd like to make? I thought it was very well. What Wayne and I did was model what we wanted those who attended to do. We had good conversation, and we got at least a lot of feedback. People had questions and comments on the sheet. So yeah. Yeah, for full house. It was well attended, good feedback. And then the second part of that meeting was what's called a World Cafe style community conversation, where there were individual tables and facilitators at each table, small group discussions about stormwater issues, what folks would like to see. And all of this has been documented and is about to be released by the Planning and Development Commission. We're doing some final tweaks and reviews, but keep an eye out for that. And all of that information will be released and used as part of the ongoing comprehensive plan update. And this was one of a series of conversations. These will be ongoing through a year. They talk about affordable housing and there's other topics, transportation and mobility and a series of other community conversations related to different aspects of the comprehensive plan. So keep an eye out for that as well. Any questions on? Oh, this one.
Yeah, no, I just had a question, and I need to attend some of them, I haven't yet, but in general, is it sort of the same basis at these meetings, or is it a cross section of the city, or what would you say?
So they're intended to be they are topical. Okay, so the meetings are citywide,
Right,
rather than geographical. And the focus of the meetings are different topics.
right,
So we've had the affordable housing meetings, we've had the stormwater meetings, there will be other topics that will get to the content. If you want more information, go on the city's website. If you search for comprehensive plan update or community conversations, there is a series of meetings. I think some of them have been scheduled. I don't think dates have been set for all of them, but you can look at the topics that are still important.
and stuff.
Transportation.
Oh, I think they're launching, there are other schedules.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, a reminder, an announcement that the 2025 Capture It Stormwater Arts Contest is live. So, go to Raleigh's website, raleighnc.gov, and search for Capture It or Stormwater Art Contest. Entries can be submitted and I don't know, I think the deadline for the announcement. I think you've got about a month left in that. I'm sorry, I didn't know that you didn't look at the deadlines. And as you may recall, this commission will be involved in the final selection of the winner. So the initial reviews will be done by staff, and then we will bring a series of finalists in video category and drawn art category for the commission to review and pick up the final winner in each category. And then the final awards will be announced in April at the Earth Day festivities that the city has every year.
Is there any kind of fee for the artist?
Yes, there are $500 stipends given to people. And this is new, and Ariel Michelle helped arrange this. Last year, all of the finalists had a display in the Pullen Arts Center and in a little reception where folks could come in, talk about the art in the displays, and then the art did remain in display at the Pullen Arts Center for a period of time afterwards. So yeah, nice recognition, and we had some really good entries. The last step of the year. Definitely high quality art in the video and the art category too. Thank you. February 28th. Thank you. So get your entries in. I'm sorry. February 28th is the deadline for the art contest entries.
And if you go to city webpage, you just type in Stormwater Project.
Yeah, it's on
Thank you.
our agenda.
Yes, that is the link is the link in your agenda as well. Okay. And a few notices prior to construction for construction anticipated in the next 90 days. The Lions Park Green Stormwater Infrastructure retrofit project was bid and is awarded and is expected to start. So as you may recall, this is one of the ARPA funded projects. The city council made an allocation to retrofit some regional infrastructure at Lions Park. Another one, Workdale Park Stream Restoration, also ARPA funded. That project is slated to be in construction as well. So looking forward to both of those projects. On North Hills Drive headwall replacement, that's a project that we are managing in-house. Glenbrook Basin Stormwater Improvements Project, that was one that was bid in the fall And we've had a little bit of delays in the starting construction, mostly because of weather, wanting to get better weather before the contractor started. That work should be starting very soon now. And then one more, I apologize, it's not on the list, but has been bid and is on the council agenda to be awarded next week, is the Spotswood Durant project. And this is a stream restoration project and a retrofit of a stormwater control measure that the city is taking over and implementing some innovative real-time control water level management of the water quality device. This is just upstream of Grant Nature Park, so it's going to help restore water quality, controlling a very large industrial area, highly impervious area. So through water quality, and then downstream of that is the stream restoration, and then that stream goes down into Grant Nature Park. So very, very innovative project. Looking forward to getting that one going as well. And that is all I have. Okay. Thank you, Wayne. For the rainwater rewards, they have a motion to accept the project. Go on for a second.
Second.
They're all in favor? No opposition? Then. Oh, we go. Let's see. At all. Yeah. Was that Spotswood project on private property or public property? So good question. So the stream restoration is mostly on the city property. The stream goes down into Durant Nature Park. The upstream part of it is on private property. And it was a completely private old stormwater control measure that was unregulated because it was put in maybe in the 1980s before we had any stormwater regulations. I think it was part of it over the zoning case maybe that didn't have any important. So it involved into disrepair, was poorly maintained. We saw that as an opportunity to come in, retrofit, make these improvements, including these real world control devices. So we negotiated an easement for the city to take over the device and then maintain it in perpetuity as a stormwater, a city maintained stormwater device. Yeah, good question.
All right. Good to see you again. Gonna do an update for our semi-new, I'll stop calling it new probably in a few months. Floodplain group. With me is James Riley and Allison Bryant. They are the illustrious members of said floodplain group. So I'll be talking for a little bit and I'll be passing off to them because you guys hear enough from me. So good for them. Basically want to talk about, once you got Seamus and Allison on board, we've been doing a lot of work to kind of get stuff done that we really needed the resources for. The first thing that we kind of did was write out this mission statement for the city floodplain management. It's in line with our stormwater division mission and vision and goals, but just wanted to kind of have something separate for floodplain management. I feel it's pretty important and we're happy to kind of have these resources. Feel free to, I'm not going to read it word for word, feel free to take a look at it. We can talk about it, but that's kind of what our presentation is based around, kind of what we're kind of basing the group's work on. So our agenda today is kind of separated into 3 categories. Efforts with preserving the floodplain, our efforts with our mitigation and grants activities, and then it's kind of some future work that we are definitely going to want to come back and talk to you guys on and have more of a free-flowing conversation about that later, which is kind of like the time to get that kind of going. So first stop, preserving floodplain, and as I instructed Seamus, we must put this in every slideshow because everybody's asked me to like what are the parts of floodplain, so we're going to start off with the basics. You got your stream channel here, your floodway here. It's kind of a mathematical model set. It's kind of like your no build zone, like for every floodplain, and then the rest of it is the floodway fringe, and the whole thing is the 1% annual chance floodplain, or commonly known as the 100-year floodplain. So hopefully, we're getting houses out of the floodplain, so showing good. So preserve it. Obviously, we all realize the natural functions of a floodplain, and we need to kind of keep those as natural as possible. because streams aren't just streams, they're associated floodplains as well. And when we have high rain events, the stream needs some place to grow and expand. So that's kind of what your floodplain is. So what we've done in the past is kind of go through some higher floodplain standards to help preserve and the floodplain also to protect people that are already hit. So also what does help us here is the basin-wide state regulations for the news buffer for their 50-foot buffer on each side of every stream. It really does help because there's a lot of basins in even North Carolina that don't have that, and they deal with operations in several streams we do. And then also maintaining open space in our floodplain, like I said, helps just reduce the overall flooding and its impacts because you're giving that stream some time to grow. So open space is a real big deal with floodplain management. Everybody loves it. Everybody wants it. So floodplain regs and higher standards. These are something that we just updated in the past 5 years and went official in 2022. If you guys just recall that, COVID kind of stretched that out a little longer than usual, but it started before COVID and then that went effective in 2022. But included in this is our 2 feet of freeboard, which is a very important aspect for building going on in our floodplain because that keeps you 2 feet above that anticipated storm area. So that's FEMA's minimums are 1 foot, just to give you some context. And 2 foot is a little bit extra. And there's fewer communities out there that have like a 3 foot, but that is something that could be possible. It ensures that any new structures or any old redeveloped structures are at a lower risk for severe flood damage. Basically, everything under that 2 feet is being built to withstand flooding, like the crawl space and things like that. So something that does come up with us is you'll have some people that do have crawl space flooding. Well, none of these houses were designed to have crawl space flooding. And so as long as you finish floors above that. And then also, one big thing we got in 2022 as well would be the entire city is mapped for the future 1% annual chance floodplain or 100-year floodplain. What that means is they base the theoretical flood model on the current zoning throughout the city, not what's actually built in the city. So it does help to kind of build that extra capacity in our future floodplain. The big thing we passed in 2022 was increasing our non-encroachment standards. So we essentially said, yeah, no.
I was just gonna ask, so like if you're not in a floodplain, you could, for example, have a home that's on the concrete slab and it would be okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So even if you're in a floodplain, you could have a home on a concrete slab, but you'd have to fill up to this 2 feet level, essentially. So fill with ground material would have to be up.
But is
there, if
there
that makes
any
sense.
restriction at all for if you're not in a floodplain? There's just, it's not,
Not as far as we're concerned.
yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, there could be some building codes I don't want to speak.
Right. Okay.
Slab, yeah. Or non-floodplains. Correct. Well, yeah, non-floodplain. Like I said, the big thing we did in 2022 was the non-encroachment standards, expanding the area, like I showed you, the floodway was kind of your no-build zone. We expanded those out to the floodway fringe areas for all vacant property in FEMA map floodplains in Raleigh. So that was, I mean, that's a big deal. It's incremental, but it's definitely a big deal. And we've talked to a bunch of towns and counties and have asked us how we even got there, and they're pretty happy. So basically, it does reduce the overall development in our natural floodplain. So that's essentially the goal.
Then I have a question on the future 1%. Is
Yeah.
that's specific?
We mean,
Like, I mean, is that a phrase just for presentation? Is that a technical term? Okay, so.
it is a technical term, yeah.
So how is that defined?
So basically, like,
Post the current?
Correct.
Okay.
just like the FEMA maps currently have a 1% annual chance mapped on it and a future 1% annual chance. 1% annual chance is based on kind of what buildings are on like we're at now.
Okay.
Or at the time they did those maps, not now. Like you can say that, like our maps were dated for 2022, but the mapping was done probably in 2016, to be honest with you. So whatever like was in Raleigh in 2016, that's what the 1% annual chance floodplain is based on.
Okay.
Now for the future, it was whatever that zoning layer and land use is for Raleigh. So like if we had an R6 property, but it was vacant, they modeled it like it had an R6 development.
Okay.
Essentially. Okay. So obviously that doesn't take into account rezonings, and that's why rezonings are such a powerful thing. It's just powerful change to community's land use. So something to keep in mind about that. With that, going with some preservation and education ties into our community rating system, or CRS, and I'll pass off to Seamus to kind of kick us off with that.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you all very much for having us here. We always appreciate the opportunity to get in front of everybody and talk about what we're doing and where we're going. So I'm going to jump right in with the CRS. The community rating system is much more widely known as the CRS. It's part of the National Flood Insurance Program, administered by FEMA. Started in 1990, and really the purpose of it is to award NFIP participating communities who voluntarily go above and beyond the expectations of the National Flood Insurance Program. So if you voluntarily do more outreach, if you voluntarily enforce higher standards or do more floodplain planning, there's more of an award or a reward for you in doing so. Oh, wrong way, okay. Sorry. What's over there? Okay. Okay, so this is map is from 2022. I've looked over and over and over for a newer map. They don't have one yet, I promise. But all visible dots represent the different CRS communities in the country. You can see in the southeast portion of the United States, which is dark green, that's FEMA Region 4, where we are obviously has a tremendous amount of dots. That's FEMA Region 4. If you look up right here, you can see that FEMA Region 4 has at least 3 times as many CRS communities in it than any other FEMA region. That does in part have to do with Florida, of course, but what's interesting about that is that these are the top 3 states with the most CRS communities. North Carolina is number 3 in the whole country. So it's not Louisiana, it's not Texas, it's North Carolina. The program itself is constructed around 4 primary series of activities, which are right here: public information, mapping and regulations, flood damage reduction, and warning and response. Underneath those series, there are 94 elements and activities that you can do in order to get points for your community. So this is an enormous program. I think the manual is about 650 pages. There's an addendum, which is over 200 pages. It's just enormous, but lots of potential and lots of opportunity for points. You can see over here, sort of, it's hard to see, but this is a list of the activities and elements that you can do. And before I go to that slide, the goal really is to do as many of these activities as you can, do them very well. They are graded strictly by FEMA. They make sure that you are doing these correctly and enforcing everything correctly, and that you're proving to them that you're doing that correctly. The goal is the more you do, the more points you get. The more points you get, the better class you have. The better class you have, I'm sorry, you guys, I'm so bad with this. The better class you have, and let's look over here first. The better class you have, the better the larger discount that your property owners in your community will get on their flood insurance premiums each year. And the reason why I put these both up is I don't know who's familiar with risk rating 2.0, but in 2021, 2022, FEMA for the first time, actually 52 years, changed the way that they assign risk and generate premiums for anybody who's interested in flood insurance. And it was a big deal. If you were a coastal community, or if you are a coastal community, you were, I'm sure, very frustrated with the difference in your premium, as it's going to be a lot larger. Whereas if you're more inland, it may have gone down, or you may not have noticed a change. The whole idea with risk rating 2.0 is equity in action. And so the goal is to get people who are on the coastal community side, who are filing more claims, to pay more than those who are more inland and maybe not filing as many. But before risk rating 2.0, you had to be inside the special flood hazard area in order to get the full CRS discount. If you were outside, if you were zone X structure, you could get up to 10%, but that was it. So after risk rating 2.0, now everybody gets the same discount, the full discount. And that's, we'd like to say that the monetary reward is not the primary reason why you're doing this program. It's really that, that it results in a more resilient, knowledgeable community base that is, better prepared and ready to go. And then the monetary incentive is just secondary. So we like to go with that. But some of the ways that we earn these points, this is actually, so hazard communication is the first series. And this is a big time requirement and a major point earner. One direct way that we do that is through flood zone determination. So we do advertise with this. You call the flood zone department, give us your address. We will provide you with the letter on city letterhead. telling you what your base flood elevation is, your flood zone, specific information about the actual firm panel itself, like the panel number and all that kind of stuff. And we'll also provide you with a flood insurance rate map that shows your parcel, your a polygon representing your home, and then it shows how the floodplain intersects with your property. And so we get a lot of these really mainly from people that are just interested in what their flood risk is. Also from some people whose mortgage companies have all of a sudden said, hey, we think that you're down in the floodplain, and it's hard for them to believe. And so we can generate these for them, and they can use them to either prove that they are or just or not. These are just flyers that we hand out, FEMA flyers we hand out all the time at different events.
What is the city's current rate? Are you ruining that for you?
No, you're not ruining. So we just had actually, we should know I just emailed the other day, hoping that I would have that information for you today, but I really wanted it today, but we were told that we would have it by the end of this month. So the city used to be in the CRS, and it then fell out of the CRS around like 2013, 2014. And so we're back in it. We're already back in the program, and we should know our class by the end of this month. I don't want to guess anything and then I'm totally wrong. So I'll leave it at that.
But Allison has made some promises.
She sure has.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the other three primary series have to do with higher regulatory standards, stormwater management, floodplain management planning, and we go over these quickly. You have to have free board in order to be a CRS community. Under stormwater, you have to do erosion and sediment control regulations and enforce those and prove that you do that well. Floodplain management, you have to have a hazard mitigation plan. You have to have a repetitive loss area analyses. So there are a lot of prerequisites, but by far there's many more optional activities that you can do. And I threw this in here because elevation certificates are so important to us. In the floodplain, really we use these to make sure that everybody's constructing to compliance, that you are building to, to the freeboard level that we are insisting upon, that we're telling FEMA that we are doing. So this is our proof that that's happening. They also provide a really holistic picture of the elevation profile of your home. So your lowest adjacent grade versus your highest adjacent grade, your lowest floor elevation, your machinery and equipment, all that kind of stuff. It's really good to have. It's also good to submit to your flood insurance agent because FEMA has estimated the first floor of every home in the United States. And as you can imagine, that's not going to be very accurate. And for the most part, we're seeing about 50 to 60% of the time when people bring these elevation certificates into their flood insurance agent, say, hey, can you just make sure that like I'm graded correctly? You find out that the data that FEMA is using is showing that their floor is much lower than it actually is. So, and obviously the higher your floor is, the better your rate. So these are a great tool to help lower your flood insurance premium a little bit, nothing too drastic, but at least a little bit. Okay, and so this is kind of a big news for us, but the CRS requires, number one, that we turn in all of our elevation certificates every single year, and they're graded by FEMA, that we have to get a 90% accuracy rate, which we should. We should have that. But that's important. They do not play with that. If you don't hit that accuracy rate, they will throw you out of the program, and they really, really will. So that's one thing that we have to do under the risk rating under the community rating system. It also requires that all of our elevation certificates are made publicly accessible and easily accessible. So we have contracted with the company. This contract should be signed today or tomorrow. And this company provides not only a digital elevation certificate database for us for our internal use. It also extracts all the data off of every single elevation certificate, grades those elevation certificates, and ensures that you're reaching that 90% capacity or 90% accuracy requirement. So that's super helpful in that whole avenue. But they're also providing a public portal, which we should have up on our website sometime within the next 30 days. And we will put something out there to let the community know that it's up there, but it's going to be up there. It's going to have every elevation certificate that the city has since about 1995 to present. And those are elevation certificates that we would have on file because they were required for whatever the work was being done at that address or that structure. So these will all be, so we'll have that up soon. It's big news, and it's a very good service and one that we should have. They're expensive to get, so it's nice to use one if it already exists. And then finally with this program, or with this new software, it offers us the ability to do substantial damage determinations out in the field. So post disaster, if the cell phone towers are gone, there's no reception or anything like that, we can use their app, go out in the field, take all the pictures we need, get all the data we need, enter it all in, and then when we get back and upload, we can upload everything back when we're back online. It's really, really geotagged everything. So it's super helpful in sort of the new day of doing substantial damage determinations, not using paper anymore.
What kind of errors do you get on elevation certificates?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah, a lot. Like everything from somehow your lowest adjacent grade is higher than your highest adjacent grade, which can't be. But I mean, that's just one example of so many different things. And they're very strict, like your community number has to be correct. The name of your community has to be correct. All these different formatting issues. So it's quite a bit.
Part of the form too is actually going to previous question. Says what building, like what foundation. And there's a lot of times where there's 8 different building types, and you know, there's probably more different buildings out in the 8. Right. So the surveyor's trying to fit their building type in, kind of FEMA 70 building types in. So there's a lot of little tricky things like that. So it's, you would think it's easy as soon as you hear about it, until you start like reviewing. There's like a lot of things that can be involved, and it's got to be, like you said, you don't get more from credit, you have to get 90%, and all that's got to be correct.
When does those, when at new builds or renovation, right? Correct. That's when you're collecting the data, right?
So what we did with this last permit software update, we have a mid-level elevation that we're checking in with it to make sure it's being all right, and then we don't get the final one until right before CO. So essentially, you can't get your CO and you turn that into it, so it's correct.
You're only getting those in one plane spots, right?
In areas that are usually what we've done in the past is if there's floodplain on your lot, you go ahead and require them. Either say through the structure, from FEMA over here, the one that
Well, like go in the plan part asking for those two, height issue, the new build.
yeah, I'll give the height, but it's, like I said, it's just going through the thing, there's a lot of different things they're asking for.
And I just realized, I think I skipped over one thing very quickly that I wanted to bring up, which was this. I did. So some of the other outreach stuff that I went over that I accidentally flew by, but letters to agents, insurance agents, lenders. We are sending these out so that they know the services that we are now providing. We're partnering up with the entities like the Raleigh City Raleigh Chamber of Commerce, who have kindly agreed to do publications for us quarterly. This one is about natural floodplain functions, only rain down the drain, no pollution. Grass clippings, all that kind of stuff like that. It's one of the 6 required CRS messages that we have to cover. And then we're doing water bill mailers. So we're sending out 4 of these a year. You should have already seen, we sent 3 out already. So hopefully people have seen those with your water bill. But they cover those additional topics. At first we were going to do one and we put everything on 1 page. And I handed it to Ariel and she's like, there's no way I'm sending this out like that. And so she came up with the idea to cut it up and do them 4 times a year, and that was perfect. So we could actually get a lot more meaningful text in there.
As long as we're all reading our water bills.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then finally for me, I just want to talk about the program for public information, which is its CRS program. This is a community-driven, committee-based program that we're hoping to do through SMAC to some capacity. It's not a lot of work for anybody who's on the committee at all. It's really just a matter of, it's a meeting once a year to go over all the different outreach stuff that we're doing to get approval of it, to get recommendations, changes, all that kind of stuff. But this is something that we will definitely be doing soon, and you'll hear a lot more about it as we get closer to forming this committee. But really the idea of it is to have guidance and ensure that the initiatives and the outreach that we're doing are really successful, that they're efficient and that they're working and that there's a lot of purpose behind them. So also with the PPI, every activity, so every letter that we send out, we bring to the committee, hopefully get approval. Every single activity we do through the PPI gets a huge multiplier as far as points go. So, if you want to be a class 4 or class 3, you have to have a PPI, and we are definitely going to have one, and we'll be reaching out to you guys soon.
I have a question.
Yeah.
That last bullet. Can you explain that a little more?
PPI.
Credit for communities, what that is, and like what community would benefit?
Yeah, so that goes back to that whole points in class, the more points you get, the better your class. So this is essentially just saying that it offers additional credits because it applies a multiplier. So if, say we got, 10 credits for a letter that we're sending out, we may now get 30. Because it's done through the PPI meet, it's come through the committee's approved it, the committee has said this is going to be helpful for us. And so they give it more value, just because it's been reviewed by a committee. So City of Raleigh just gets more points and that leads to a better class.
Okay.
Yeah. And then with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Allison.
A bit about some of the flood mitigation projects that we currently have going on at the city and have kind of planned out for the near future. All of these utilize different grant funding sources. So the first ones that I'm going to cover are two kind of individual property-based mitigation projects that we have either received funding for or have been approved for funding for. So the first one is a residential structure acquisition, often terms referred to as a buyout, kind of as a more casual term. So Ben mentioned earlier the importance of open space in the floodplain. The more open space we have in the floodplain, the better the floodplain can function as it wants to function, and the fewer properties that we have in the floodplain to potentially get damaged. So something that the city really tries to kind of do on a yearly basis is flood prone residential structure acquisitions. So acquiring structures from private property owners that have repetitive flood damage, have experienced a lot of flooding, or are at a really high flood risk for whatever reason. So we currently have an acquisition project in for funding through FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program called HMGP. So kind of once that moves through the funding cycle and moves through the city's kind of court for action, we will be acquiring residential property, demolishing the property, and maintaining that parcel as open space in perpetuity. So the city will maintain that as open space in the floodplain. And the second kind of individual property project we've got going on right now is a residential structure elevation. So the city has done a number of structure acquisitions in the past, but we have not yet done a structure elevation where we take a structure that is low lying in the floodplain and we elevate it up to meet our current floodplain standards, so that kind of reduces the overall flood risk of that property, but allows the property owner to continue to live at that property. So this can be a great option for someone who is experiencing a lot of flooding, but does not have any interest in relocating or wanting to move or selling their property to the city for acquisition. So this is something we'll be doing for the first time through FEMA's Flood Mitigation Assistance Program. So we're looking forward to seeing how that goes and getting that experience under our belt to potentially do more of it in the future, if it's something that aligns with our goals and kind of moving forward our overall mitigation strategy. And two things that I'll mention about these two programs in particular. So these deal specifically with private property owners. These are not publicly owned parcels. So these are voluntary programs. So the homeowner either approaches the city with interest to participate in one of these programs, or we're doing outreach to a property owner to voluntarily kind of obtain interest in these programs. So these homeowners could drop out at any time if they decide it's not something they want to move forward with. But oftentimes when we have someone approach us with interest, they're going to see it through to the end. So that's a really great perk of these programs. And with these two in particular, since these are both occurring on structures that have documented repetitive flood losses over the years, there is no city match in funding for these. So these are completely federally or state funded grant projects. So that's really great for us because it allows us to kind of do these projects without expending a lot of city resources. It really expands our capacity to do a lot more of this individual mitigation work without allotting a bunch of city funding for it.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Is that Bailey Drive, the top two images?
It could be. I'm not sure, actually.
All right. And
Yeah.
then, I know the bottom program is new. You have an estimate on how much it would cost. I know it's maybe some square footage,
Yeah.
but to lift a house.
You're right. It totally depends on the square footage and kind of like how low the house is compared to how much it needs to come up to meet our current flood regulations. I believe the one we have in right now is around $250,000 to $300,000.
to live.
To lift the whole,
And it's a fairly small house.
yeah, it's
But
like,
it's inside the bottom line, so so the land price, it's
Right.
big enough. And and to hammer on the coin, which I also did a good job on. It's like you hammer on, the elevation was not something you were choosing to do, but since they got 100% funded outside of our hands, we didn't feel like we wanted to set it. But that, and so like, that's something that I do want to come back to the commission on, other mitigation strategies that we look at, that's staff's not quite sure how we feel about elevating structures. To be honest with you, but like I said, this was 100% funded outside city's control, and we didn't feel like it was worth turning our back on it, especially because this resident was very, very vocal and really passionate about getting the house.
So the hazard mitigation grant program, is that separate from the FEMA program?
It's both.
In addition to?
Hazard mitigation grant, I'm sorry.
no.
Sorry. Hazard mitigation grant program is usually associated with an actual storm. Like say they get like a disaster declaration, and I'll use Helene as most recent, that's not on this one's from. But they'll usually get like funding statewide for like a disaster declaration. And so HMGP is associated with the storm, whereas FMA is like every year they have funding for FMA, the flood mitigation side. So it's a little more iterative, whereas like the HMPP, theoretically, we could go a couple of years without a disaster declaration, but we might have that in the
So I just know with the FEMA
But they're both,
buyout,
they're both
yeah, the
big.
FEMA buyout, they're really strict about how much you're gonna offer and get supplemented and things like that.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts on it, you have to really base it on.
Yeah, and so Reagan comes back.
So there's no like if me and you were doing a real estate deal, like we could go back and forth on a little bit by feel, but you can't do any of that.
And there's no way the city can say, well,
Yeah, we can't.
we'll help out there.
Figure that out, again, what's the financial, is it based on the tax assessment or?
No, it's based on appraisal, like say, like really to get in the weeds here, Wayne can throw something at me if I get too far in the weeds here. Like, we would get an appraisal done on like an acquisition and like say like you as like a resident didn't like agree with it, you could get your own appraisal done. And then we would meet somewhere in the middle between those two appraisals. But like you couldn't just come back and say, I want an extra 40,000 because I feel like it, because I have a lot of numbers in this house. So, and that's why it's totally voluntary and people can walk away at any time because we're not gonna do eminent domain or anything like that for one of these properties. So that's sort of why it's set up that way. That's very strict. And also to speak to the federal requirements, the relocation standards are pretty strict as far as like, if there's renters, like in the structure or anything like that, like we have to pay for the renters to find substantial housing that's about the same rent, and we have to pay for them for 9 to 12 months to kind of go there. So there's all sorts of federal requirements, things like that.
Was that in response to a specific storm? Sort of.
This one,
This one, yeah, they called it severe storms of 2020, so it wasn't like a hurricane or a tropical storm, it was like a group of heavy rainfall events that impacted this.
And you're about to buy it?
correct, we're pretty close, because this one, unfortunately, this one specifically, we had a lot of funding that we thought through the INCOR program, which is the North Carolina Office of Resiliency, and they hit up, there was a bunch of snags the past fall. So luckily, the state was able to find us another funding source for this one, for this resident. So,
What agency at the state do you work with?
it's under their overall, public safety group.
But it's not an in-court.
No, it's not necessarily INCOR, like this was gonna be our first working with INCOR, and then the rug kind of got pulled out from all that, so.
When were flood plains established, like what kind of thing?
In Raleigh, 1978.
Long time ago.
Are there any restrictions with the FMA, can any house in the floodplain apply for the?
They have to meet certain cost benefit standards. And she'll get into a little bit of that, like we kind of refined our way of looking at the cost benefit standards, like a second, but yeah, FEMA's main thing is they have to have flood insurance and they have to have paid out claims over a certain amount of time. Because they have to see a cost savings when using FEMA money. Yes.
So there is some accountability there.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
there's a ton. Once you get, there's a ton of paper. Always rare, so you have-
Do y'all advertise this as something that can be done, or do they just need to go to Raleigh Stormwater?
So we do outreach for our properties that we know about,
Impacted.
that have these losses, because the NFIP will give us lists of properties that they have claims for supposedly every year. Sometimes we have to like press them forward, kind of, hey, we need the update list for 2024, we kind of get that, but yeah.
So that's usually how we do those, but we'll attack some of that, what Allison's gonna talk about too. It's just a little, it's an exciting tool that we just unveiled.
Yeah, really great question.
Plus, if a person's looking to lower their flood insurance premium, right, they've got high insurance.
Correct, but we would do it, but for like property acquisition, theoretically, they would just provide, yes, with the elevation, they get potentially lower.
Right. Okay, looking at a little bit larger scale, another project that we kind of have been working on and will have coming up in the near future is for a planning study and in a part of town that we refer to as the Midtown kind of waterfront, if you will, on the waterfront of Crabtree Creek. We submitted an application to FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program called BRIC. So this is a national competitive grant program that is not tied to a specific storm event. This is another one that recurs every single year. So each year we have the opportunity to submit grant applications to the program. And so last year, I believe it was 2023, 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's true, it's very fast.
Yes. We submitted an application to BRIC for a planning study that would allow us to do some additional analysis that builds on some analysis that has already been done with the city planning department. And I believe a grad student at NC State looked at transforming the flood prone area along Crabtree Creek that's kind of bound by Wake Forest Road, Atlantic Avenue. There's a railroad that runs kind of to the east side of the project site and up right above Hodges Street, kind of bound by Hodges Street. I can never remember the name of the road on the north, but kind of very Midtown Central Crabtree Creek. Transforming this area that is extremely flood prone. We have a lot of very repetitive loss type structures in this area of the city that are seeing flood losses, extreme flood losses on a year by year basis, depending on how hard it rains. So we would look at transforming this area into a more well-utilized mixed-use district that gives a little bit more space for Crabtree Creek to kind of function how it originally wanted to function before development kind of impeded its ability to pass flow and route and retain stormwater in the area. So this would really look at kind of restoring and enhancing a portion of Crabtree Creek, creating additional retention opportunities, green infrastructure opportunities to help restore the stream function, create floodable space. So space that floods now that has buildings on it, maybe we look at relocating those buildings to a slightly different location to allow space that wants to flood in a safe manner. And also kind of infiltrate stormwater so that we see less flooding overall in this region. So this would be a collaborative planning study with us in stormwater. And like I said, the planning department, it would be a two-faceted approach, and the technical stormwater aspect and the planning, development, real estate side of things that would deal with kind of looking at how best to utilize the parcels around this area. Besides just kind of creating a really nice stormwater amenity out of the space.
Just don't mess with Biscuitville. Okay?
Yeah, we will not touch Biscuitville. We might raise Biscuitville. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you could use that FEMA thing to raise the building.
Yeah.
Yeah. A big community service.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And then looking at another, maybe, there we go. Another BRIC project that we just submitted this last year in 2024 for the Rose Lane Safe Access Flood Resilience Project. I'm sure you all are aware of this project. It's a really high profile, really kind of front of my project for Raleigh Stormwater. So we've submitted for potential construction funding through BRIC for this project that would provide safe and reliable access to many of the neighborhoods around Rose Lane that experience really repetitive flooding and restricts their access to the neighborhood completely when a flooding event does occur across these roadways. So obviously we have the kind of accessibility and flooding benefit that this project would provide, but we would also see kind of increased road network connectivity, overall resilience, in the city's transportation network, And also looking at emergency responder safety. The safer that we can make this area for residents, the less times first responders have to go out there and kind of potentially help people who may be in danger when a flooding event happens. So you'll notice that the two brick projects, they are larger scale in nature, but they are also kind of more multifaceted. It's a really great program to take advantage of projects that are a little bit more complex or might have additional benefits other than just purely reducing flooding on a structure or a house or a roadway. They have a lot of different kind of economic, societal, obviously kind of stormwater flooding benefits, but lots of different multifaceted projects see success in the BRIC program. So we've submitted this application. We have not heard back from it since we just submitted it last year, but we're hoping to hear some news that this will be considered as part of the BRIC program in the upcoming years. And just before I kind of move on to grants a little bit, so I wanted to highlight the fact that, so these are some current grant and mitigation project opportunities that we've got going on. In the past couple of years, we have submitted kind of to every major federal grant mitigation program since 2023. Yeah, 2023. So that's great news. That's something that we're really prioritizing kind of already and moving forward. We really want to be active in identifying project opportunities and submitting for project opportunities that can utilize grant funding so that we can accomplish more without having to spend a lot of city funding. Obviously, some of these programs require a certain match of funds from the city, but some of them don't, as we've seen. So utilizing these programs is a really great way for us to just expand on our capacity even more, especially when it comes to private property and non-public owned spaces. And then last, Ben kind of alluded to this. So over the last couple of years, we've really tried to hone in on how we identify and prioritize different mitigation opportunities throughout the city. The city is very large. Unfortunately, we have a lot of different types of flooding issues throughout the city. So how do we really nail down kind of where it makes sense to go first? You know, how do we target our outreach to property owners who may be interested in these kinds of mitigation projects? So we've been working with a consultant over the past year or so to develop a GIS-based tool that kind of tries to holistically capture flood risk and helps quantify flood risk for every kind of structure throughout the city that may experience flooding based on our mapped flood hazards. So this looks at every single building and parcel in the city in comparison to the FEMA map floodplain, in addition to the map floodplains and flood hazard areas that come out of our watershed studies. So that our kind of asset management and planning groups are working on as they complete more and more watershed and drainage basin studies. Those will feed into this tool as well to kind of expand on the areas that we're looking at flood risk throughout the city. So this tool kind of has a lot of kind of black box calculations that looks at where in the floodplain these structures are, how deep they flood if they're in the floodplain. They look at different flood events. So we're not just looking at the 1% or 100-year flood event like we kind of would on a floodplain map. We're looking at more often recurring events like a 10-year storm event or a 25-year storm event. We're looking at repetitive loss data for these areas. We're looking at a bunch of different factors that contribute to overall flood risk for all of these structures and calculating a score for each structure. And those scores kind of help us hone in on where the most kind of flood prone properties may be throughout the city. So it really gives us kind of a justifiable and quantifiable way to identify potential opportunities, figure out where we might want to reach out to property owners to see if they would be interested in any of these different mitigation opportunities, and help us identify opportunities for grant funding and help us kind of support and prepare our grant applications as well. So these are some screenshots from our GIS tool. We also have a GIS online dashboard. Yeah, go ahead and click on that, see if that works. That will eventually allow us to kind of show off this tool to not only our team within this kind of floodplain group who is familiar with this tool and really uses it on a week-to-week basis, but also eventually share with other teams within stormwater or within the city, or maybe eventually the public, to really kind of share how we are approaching, quantifying, and prioritizing mitigation opportunities in the city. So This is the current flood risk prioritization dashboard that we have developed, so you can zoom in, you can look at any additional or you can search for any kind of specific property, and it will give you kind of all of the data that is going into the tool and the overall flood risk score. You can kind of see how things stack up through different areas throughout the city. Yeah, Ben showing you can kind of filter by different things. You can filter by a watershed, a type of building, and again, it does have an address search feature, so you can search for a specific address and pull up all the information. So we're still kind of fine tuning this to get it to the way that we want and to really show the data that we want to be able to share. But it's a really great way for people who may not be as kind of interested or willing to kind of dive into a GIS project file to really look at the data that we're getting out of this tool.
And that's how much of a query really.
Yeah. we work with GIS.
It pulls a dashboard with all out of insurance.
Yeah, so this is the same data that we see in GIS, just in a slightly different. Yeah.
The format I can understand, where it's out.
So we're really looking forward to having this tool, continuing to kind of fine tune it. The great thing about this is that it's dynamic. We can continue to update this data however we like. We can tweak score values if we feel like things are not really working out the way that aligns with kind of the city's priorities for flood mitigation. Really dynamic kind of evaluation tool for us to use going forward and continue to improve on.
And just a plug for the watershed, the more watershed studies we do, the more data this tool gives, and the better this tool is. So like the watershed we've already done and completed, we have a lot more populated than the ones that, so it's really nice.
Absolutely.
You have a question, Lou?
Oh, I just had a couple comments.
Yeah.
Thought about it, and there might have been someone in the room that attended as well. There was NCORE training for grant funding, roughly 2 years ago, this month, and I attended that, and this guy that sat next to me in regards to raising the structures, that was in his wheelhouse. And he said his biggest issue was finding contractors to do it because they had to set an hourly wage or that they could make more money building houses. So I don't know whether you guys encountered that at all.
So we have dipped our toe into this,
Okay.
and we haven't even got to the contractor thing. Other than, not like this program, like we're still waiting for FEMA to officially approve that, so.
And then also with the BRIC funding, this group I was with a few years ago, they said that the amount of BRIC funding vacillated based on natural disasters. So there been some big natural disasters recently, so I don't know.
It's definitely fluctuated, but since they've started the BRIC program, total funding has not been below the.
Oh, great.
So,
Yeah, good.
so yeah, it's a lot of funding, and the state of North Carolina, to their credit, their grant operation is really honed in on getting as much money to North Carolina as possible. So they are really a great partner for BRIC especially, but also your other grants, but BRIC especially, they really were trying to get the results. Good deal.
So maybe I'll go back and update as much as you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the future.
Oh,
No, it's fine.
and then diving into,
Before you forward, you might go back, I'm sorry. Was it intentional to have the acronym BOAT? I think it.
it wasn't, but I.
It wasn't?
Yeah,
Hi.
yeah, no, not intentional.
So yesterday I did notice that, and I was like, it's not the official plan. I noticed both as well.
I didn't even notice that.
But I didn't want to change the presentation yesterday. It was too late.
The acronym,
Yeah.
it kind of fits.
Both could be a good one.
Yeah. It definitely is easier to say than trying to say mitigation, prioritization, assessment, all that good stuff. So,
Well, because it's not, and the reason we kind of went this way, because it's not like Scott's CIP prioritization tool, a little more black and white. Like there's certain factors we have here, like it's voluntary. So we can't necessarily have, we might not ever knock out the top 10 projects, because the 10 homeowners that never want to work with this, we're never going to get to the top 10. So that's why we didn't follow the exact prioritization model or something like that. We're trying to think of a good name for like an assessment tool. So, but BOAT is pretty good.
thanks for pointing that out.
It's water related.
It's water related, that's right.
That is correct.
Okay, and looking ahead a little bit on some things that we have either kind of just started working on or plan to start working on in the near future. We would love to see the city become what is called a cooperating technical partner, or CTP, with FEMA and actually the state of North Carolina's floodplain mapping program. So our state mapping program is a CTP or CTS, sometimes cooperating technical state, is occasionally used as well, which means that North Carolina has a lot of control and involvement in updating our floodplain map. So they decide where they get updated, how often they get updated. Communities have the option to become a CTP and partner with FEMA and the state, if it's relevant, which it is in our case, to become a CTP and become more involved in updating our floodplain map. So Ben mentioned the last time our floodplain maps and regulations were updated was in 2022. Prior to that, the last update was 2006. Is that right? So that's almost 20 years of not updating our floodplain maps and not updating our flood hazards that we are regulating every day. So as we all know, the city has definitely changed a lot in those last 20 years. So our floodplains probably shouldn't look the same as they did in 2006. They probably don't look the same as they did in 2022 at this point in some locations. So becoming a CTP will allow the city to become more involved and really have ownership of where and when we're updating our floodplain maps. So this also allows us the liberty of not necessarily having to update the entire city in one go. We could choose one area of the city that we think is really outdated for whatever reason. Maybe there's a lot of development going on. But we really think that those floodplain maps have changed. And so we can really target where and when we are updating our floodplain maps. We can also increase the level of detail and the amount of area that we are mapping. So our current watershed studies are currently mapping to a lot more detail in a lot of areas than FEMA is looking at mapping floodplains. So if we become a CTP, we have the opportunity to really kind of go further upstream and map a lot of kind of smaller stream areas, areas that FEMA may not be looking at for their mapping criteria, to really increase the level of detail and floodplain that we have mapped and can regulate throughout the city. So doing so will only improve just our general knowledge and the public's general knowledge of flood hazards, but also will allow us to hopefully just overall decrease flood risk and really know where we should be kind of monitoring development and things like that in flood-prone areas. So we're really looking forward to this opportunity to kind of get a better handle on our floodplain mapping. And we are starting to get a little bit more involved with Kelly Daniel and his Fuse, the flood early warning system team. So Fuse system is always expanding year over year. They're always looking to add more flood monitoring cameras, more stream gauges, more rain gauges to really just increase not only our awareness of flood hazards and kind of flood behavior in the city, but also the public's awareness of flood hazards. So we are really trying to get more involved with Kelly to help support his team in expanding their stream gauge network and their flood camera network to really build out Fuse to what it really can be throughout the city. So great, something we're looking forward to all around, but we're also looking forward to its ability to help us improve inundation mapping to support the CRS program. So that's something that we can get additional community rating system points for if we improve overall inundation mapping throughout the city. And also feeding into potential work in future floodplain mapping as a potential future CTP. Having a great, robust stream gauge and monitoring network will only improve our ability to map flood hazards, calibrate flood hazards to what we're seeing on the ground in real time. So we're really excited about Fuse's potential to help grow not only their own program, but also our program in floodplain. And this is speaking.
So, and a couple things, this kind of slide is more stuff that I want to bring back to the commission at a later date. Obviously, our floodplain regulations, they were last updated, like you said, 2022. We kind of started that process in 2019 timeframe. Is there anything else we could be doing? We can better benchmark with other communities now and kind of figure out kind of, are we lagging in some areas of our regulations? Are our regulations good? They could be better. Second, would be just updating the SMAC with those on an annual basis, but also some updates. And if there's any ideas that the commission has as far as like how we can be doing development issues that. And also discuss acceptable types of mitigations with the commission and with staff. Like we mentioned with the elevation, it does present some problems. Like I said, we were kind I hesitate to say dumped on because we did have to accept that kind of elevation project, but it's not something we would have necessarily picked, but it was 100% funded. Is that something we want to continue to look at? It does present other problems that we'd like to explore, things like that, and go through it. So it's just, and any other improvements to the floodplain program that the SMAC has, I mean, I definitely love to have more of a free-flowing conversation, less of a talk-to conversation about it, kind of figure out where we're going from here. But we're pretty excited, as Allison mentioned, and Seamus, I mean, a lot of this work is being geared up the past couple of years. That ties back to when we got resources in place. And that's a major impact and something you guys have looked at in years past. We're adding another resource, hopefully in FY 26, which is July, to this group, which will only enhance the capabilities we can do. So we've grown in leaps and bounds the past couple of years and want to continue that. So. And that leads into our new position, hopefully in FY 26, is going to be more of a hazard mitigation specialist and floodplain mapping. So there'll be an engineer level spot. Allison right now is a senior engineer, Seamus is a supervisor. So GIS based person, but also is good at some grant writing, things like that. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're looking at, and basically just help out like with all the good work that's going on. And that's it. Wayne's favorite ending slide there. But any questions? Yeah. Thanks.
I know my name is on this agenda item. Scott Ryan to take us through it, and I know he's going to be assisted by Javier and Barbara.
Good afternoon, Commission, and Happy New Year. It's great to be here at the historic Carousel House at Chambers Park. It's budget season. You know, when is it not budget season? Javier is around here somewhere. When's it not budget season? Take like 1 week off.
June and July.
Okay.
Short period.
Yes, that's right.
It's now start the new year, but there's no planning.
That's right. But it's so important, right? Preparing our budget. It really is a reflection of the commission, the council, our community's goals. And in this case, for stormwater management, all the presentation that you just heard from Ben and team developing that floodplain program over the last just few years. And Heather and I were just talking how much work has been taking place in just a few years, but it takes resources to do that. Team members, budgets for projects. So that's what we're going to talk about. A couple of things here. We're going to bring to you today an overview of our budget process, sort of a budget 101. This will be a reminder for some of you, and also maybe some new information for some of the newer members, just how we go about our budget process. I'm going to be joined by experts here. Of course, Wayne's going to guide us. Barbara and Javier are going to join me in the presentation as we go through this. It'll be relatively fast track. We are going to present highlights of our fiscal year 26 capital plan. You've already got that in your package, so we've actually already submitted that as part of our early submittal for the budget. And as we finish our budget, I think it's going to be due next month, I think, or so. We're going to bring back to you in March our full proposal. And then I think it's going to council, I think by March as well. So you'll see it typically before it goes to city council for their review and approval. And they do their deliberations, and then they typically approve these budgets sometime in the late May or June timeframe. So that's kind of where we are. Okay, let's go through this here. Mr. Alton. Okay, we've seen this, our mission statement, vision statement, everything we're doing is trying to be stormwater smart in the community. A few things here in terms of our budget 101, we're talking about our utility fee. I'm going to turn it over to Javier to talk about operational budgets and pilots there. Barbara's going to lead through our CIP highlights. And then we'll talk about the financing strategy for that briefly. Everybody's pretty familiar with our stormwater utility fee that generates the revenue for what we do. It's based upon impervious area. As impervious area goes up, if that impervious area provides benefits, right, that we all use at the same time, it provides impacts to stormwater. It increases the stormwater runoff. It decreases the stormwater quality runoff. So both of those things we're trying to mitigate and turn those around. A single family property currently pays $7.65 a month. And that single average property is around 2,200 square feet of impervious area. This is looking down from above. Here, a typical a home with its house and driveway, around 2260 square feet. That's per month. Okay. Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so how, you have a structure and you have heated square feet. That's what most homeowners are familiar with.
Right.
So then how do you decide what is how, is there a calculation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically, yeah, that, we also think of the heated square foot or the internal square footage. This is looking at the square footage from essentially above. So as rain fall to get to the property, yeah, this could be a single level home. It could be double, it could be more than that. It's really a function of how much it would be in terms of rainfall runoff. So we look at GIS aerial photography, such as you see here, and then within GIS, as Ben just mentioned, we can do calculations on the amount of the building footprint, the driveway, the sidewalks, and things like that. And from statistics that Wayne's team helped us with on the consulting side many years ago, well, not too many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, determined that the average square footage is around 2,200 square feet, 2,260. So that's because our billing unit for stormwater. So we look at it from above, not so much how many floors there are.
It's a great shot. I think you can email the city address.
Yes.
And just ask what the per lot, what your lot is, or what somebody else's lot is.
It's on your survey.
Yes.
You can just trace the house and driveway.
There is a track, the city has a track as well, so.
That's right.
You can, okay, so repeat that, you can go where?
You can email somebody in the city and they'll tell you what they have for your property.
That's right. Anyone can do that. And there may even be an application that folks can get that information, but certainly just send us an email if there's any questions that the commission has, or if you're, anyone in the community can send us an email. We'll look that up and give you the information, exactly what it is on your property and how the bill is determined. Great. So that's single family residential. We treat single family residential like this. There's different tiers for single family residential, but any non-single family residential is treated like this. We call it commercial. It's really non-single family residential. Same concept. We look at the building footprint. In this case, it's a parking lot surrounding, so some access, streets there, or access ways to this commercial property. In this case, it's 47,000 square feet. And what's the bill for that? You take that total, divided by our average unit, that was 2,260, and get 24.93. So their monthly bill in this case is that factor times our typical monthly rate, 765 or 160. So you see that really the larger footprint properties are the ones that are really generating more runoff, and therefore, in a fair sense, you're paying more. In fact, 2/3 of our revenue comes from the commercial sectors. You can see right here, what we call commercial. Again, it's non-single family residential, it's everything other than single family residential. And these are various tiers of single family residential side right now. Where are we over time? Currently $7.65 in fiscal year 25. Over time, since 2004, through 2016, there are actually no changes in the fee rate. Today, we're not bringing forward proposals with the fee rate yet. Look for those to come soon. It's just sort of some history. Through 16, no change. Some changes started taking place in 17 and 20 as we grow the resources for the program to do things like floodplain, to do GSI, to do other priorities of the commission and the council. And we're currently sentenced to follow. Where are we compared to our peers? We're always trying to do the very best that we can for Raleigh. So we're also trying to do that as affordably as we can for Raleigh too. So we're quite pleased with where we are. We're about a high level of service overall for our Raleigh customers. And yet we're still sort of mid-range compared to our peer municipalities. So you see a range here from just under $3 or around $3, just under $4, all the way up to more than $18. That's per month. So we're right there in the mid range. With that, we'll turn it over to Javier.
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon. Happy New Year's. So I'll take you basically over a budget overview. We're going to use fiscal year 25, which is the current year we're in, as the example. Just some high level overview, what goes into the planning that we're currently doing right now, and getting ready to present, to you guys, to SMAC and also to the council. In overview, we had to submit a balanced budget every year. And this is basically the breakdown of how that balanced budget is created. Our revenues for this fiscal year are just north of $39 million. We'll get into that, what makes up our revenues. And that, to balance that, it balances out with our operating costs, which includes our personnel costs and our operating and maintenance costs, and also what we transfer over to our PAYGO, our CIP pay, we call it PAYGO, into our CIP, and that's where we fund our programs and our projects at it. So we'll speak a little bit to these three different sections of our budget plan. So we'll start with the revenue. Like I mentioned, currently in fiscal year 25, our adopted budget is $39.3 million. That's made up of three major components. The largest one of the three is our utility rate. You probably heard this before. It's probably 95% of our revenue comes from our utility fee, that Scott just alluded to. Just to give you an idea, obviously, the rate, $7.65 is your average rate. How many units we have? North of 400,000 units. So I think just north of 4 or 5 at the moment, so 405,000 units. And that's from over 135,000 customers in the city of Raleigh. The other two obviously make up 5% of our revenues, permit reviews and penalty fees. That's thanks to Ben and his team. We collect revenue from there. One note there is that we're going through a study right now to review those rates. We should get something back from that soon and probably make some adjustments to those rates as well. And then the last component is a very small amount, but it's interest on our investments or our holdings. Basically, the money we have in the bank is making some money. While we take time, we get to use it. So that's the breakdown of our revenue. Going into our ops, currently this year, 25.4 million in fiscal year 25. That's personnel and operating costs. Here's a breakout of that expense between us and our stormwater maintenance team, which is housed out of transportation, makes up about 30% of our operating costs and personnel costs. The rest is from a stormwater, the stormwater side. Currently now in the budget planning process, we're looking into baseline increases, right? Taking a look at what those are. You have personnel increases, you have operating increases, you have the equipment that needs to be replaced, you have indirects that go up. So we're planning that all out, and at the same time revisiting our personnel. If we had to add any supplemental positions for next year, and we'll most likely bring that over to you guys in the March SMAC meeting. In addition to our personnel and operating costs, we have indirect costs, CCD costs, and some other general fund transfers. We look at those every year during the planning process. Those tend to typically go up, year over year, just like our personnel and operating costs do as well. And then lastly, we have another operating cost that we have is debt services. Currently, we just have a small loan that we're paying off over. I think we have another 5 years left on that, but it's just around $100,000. That's the only debt we have on the books currently. We created this breakdown of our operating budget overview. I think a member in SMAC had requested that, so we put that together. That was a few meetings back. Here it's showing basically what I said earlier, which is 30% of operating costs comes from our TFS maintenance crew out of the TFS, our stormwater maintenance crew. And then the rest is broken down into 4 other programs, I guess you can call it, business, financial, development and mitigation management, our infrastructure and CIP team, and then our planning and asset management. Obviously the big one is 30%. That's our team out of TFS. The next one is business and finance management. The reason for that is, I guess that segment or that program takes on a lot of the expenses for the transfers and indirects instead of breaking it out to the other programs. That one's the one that's responsible for those expenses. So that's why it comes in at 26%, which is the second biggest one of the chart. And then lastly, in order to have the balanced budget, the remaining funds after we take care of our operating and personnel expenses, the remaining amount is what we dedicate to our CIP, and in a manner of a transfer to the CIP. We call it our pay-go. And that's what allows us to fund our projects and programs in the CIP. 13.9 was the biggest year yet this year as far as the transfer goes. And then the way we allocate that is based on our priority projects and their schedule and what we anticipate to encumber in that given year for this current year. Yeah.
Like for your inspectors and things like that, what department is that?
Yeah, so that would be out of our development and mitigation. Sorry, yeah, development and mitigation management team, which is the one that Ben oversees. Okay, and with that, pass it over to Barbara. She'll speak a little bit into a little bit on our CIP planning.
Yeah. Okay, so Javier and Scott talks about how we get revenue in, how some of that revenue is allocated to operating and the rest is allocated to the CIP. So I've got a couple of slides talking about how do we spend the money that gets into our CIP and what are our big picture needs. So this slide, we're going to start with the big picture. The watershed planning, flood hazard mitigation that Ben and team talked about, asset management, drainage assistance, all these programs we have. We're constantly generating projects and opportunities. So we've kept track of all of those, and we have a large amount. We have about $960 million of known capital needs in different categories. So major CIP, water quality, stream restoration, aging infrastructure, flood mitigation. And so every year we look at the priorities and we pick out highest priority projects. And we've got some slides on the highest priority projects that we have in the near term. So go into some more detail. So we could probably do a whole presentation on this process. And in fact, we are for council in February. So we'd like to bring that presentation to you all first at the next SMAC meeting to really dive into this number. Okay, but the bullets at the bottom. So if we use our current pay-go of 13.9 million, it will take about 66 years to get through this backlog if we don't find anything new. And we know we're always finding new projects. So Scott and Javier and team have been working with finance on a debt strategy to help us work through that backlog. We also heard a lot about grants. So Ben and team talked about applying for grants. We've also done ARPA grants and things like that. So with this debt financing and grant strategy, we think we can reduce the backlog for 25 years of this rate. All right. These two pie charts represent categories we have in our CIP. So the pie chart on the left is what we have now. And in fiscal year 25, the one on the right is what we're proposing in fiscal year 26. And the big difference is we're looking to spend more on major CIP projects. And we've got, in a couple slides, we'll go through some of those bigger projects. But that's the goal, is to get through the backlog, spend more on major CIP. All right. And one of the key points with debt financing is that it happens every couple of years. So this is not a one-time thing, but it's ongoing. And what that will allow us to do is really accelerate what we can deliver in the next 5 years. So, you know, this 5-year total at the end, this could change. It depends on timing of projects, the mechanics of debt financing. But the goal is to deliver the high priority projects and serve the community. That's our intent. All right, so these next two slides give an overview of the high priority projects, and then we've got slides with like a photo for each one. But we've been working with Monty and team for the past couple of years on really getting schedules together for the projects. So we've got schedules, from planning in green through construction in red. And you'll recognize some of the names on here, like Camp Pond Dam, Eastgate Dam. We've been talking about those for a couple of years because they've been moving from planning to design. And what we're looking for is where is this big dollar construction going to hit in red? And you can see it's lining up, and they're all lining up for fiscal year 26 and 27. And that helps inform us when we need to go out for this down payment. Next slide, we have other projects like Upper Durant, Battleford, District Ranch, recognize Rose Lane. Maybe some of that brick grant that Ben is chasing will reduce what we need to get from that financing for that project. But we're watching this closely and working with the finance team at the city to hone in on when we need to go out for that. Are there any questions on that for the team?
You have, I know you mentioned this on the other side, that there's some debt service. Do you have bonds that are active?
Yeah, no concept about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this will be the first time we go out for bonds. Yeah, we only have, it's a small bond, it's that's a little bit, suppose, of what you can do for the state. That's not like that. We're going in between, so it's relatively blind, so they are first time looking for our state, but the loan we currently have, we'll go out for debt financing, it'll probably be.
Would that, it'd be marketable to investors, just like any of us. We
Yeah.
could buy into the bond and like a treasury bond. Is it gonna be like that, like public?
No.
No, it's not that kind of bond.
Initially, we will just have basically a line of credit with the bank for the first 2 years. And then they'll get a debt draw program, kind of like a HELOC, like if you want to have an analogy for a homeowner line of credit. And then we will incur that debt, and then we will convert that debt to a revenue bond for an enterprise fund, that's just stormwater utility, so we can issue revenue bonds, just like Raleigh water does for water and sewer projects. And that revenue bond then will just go onto the market for sellers.
That'd be interesting.
It's a new process.
Your
for us.
passion.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got some slides on the high priority projects. These are all currently under various stages of design. Rose Lane Safe Access Project, you've heard a lot about that. This is to address flooding, chronic flooding of Rose Lane and provide a safe way out for the community. Camp Pond Dam, this dam has an NOV. There's a deficient emergency spillway. It's also a one-way in, one-way out street for about 40 homes. So protecting this dam street is really important. This is one of our high priority projects. Sweetbriar Drive, this is primarily due to flooding, significant flooding of the road and property, crawl space. Eastgate Dam is another dam with a deficiency. It's not an NOV, but it is a high priority for repair. We've also talked about the Upper Durant wetland conversion project, again, driven by poor condition of a dam, but we're taking this opportunity to make some water quality improvements at Upper Durant. East Lane Street, this is a combo project of street flooding and also infrastructure. You might recognize this picture from past presentations. But there is failing infrastructure that we need to address.
So what is the intersection, the East Lane intersection?
Question. The intersection?
Get back to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm one, think it's a big one, there's a low board.
Battleford project, this is one identified with watershed study with street flooding. Water flows from the yard and overtops the street. Whoops. Right. I think I skipped anything. Whispering Branch, another project identified in a watershed study with significant road overtopping of a one-way in, again, one-way in, one-way out street of Western Branch and Wood Ave. So this is to address flooding and safe access for them.
I'm sorry, the parade battle for where, sure, where is that flooding coming from? Just out of curiosity, is there a creek or something?
Yeah, there's not enough capacity. There's actually a pipe through this yard, but there's not enough capacity for the system to convey the flow, so it's just going overland. And then it flows from this yard out into the street and overtops the street. These projects all have big public safety drivers, which is why we want to get them completed. And here, I think
Yeah, I can speak to these. This is your baby, but I can speak to them. So, as part of the planning process, Barbara has, with her leadership and guidance and the help of eFolder, which is one of our, well, change the name now, but it's one of our softwares that we use to plan our projects, to manage our projects. We've been able to grab every project of the program, give it a schedule and a cash flow in the system, which this is, representation of one project, for example, this is Camp Pond. And thanks to this, information from all the PMs and all the program leads, we're able to get the big picture of, hey, this is the timing of when we're going to need a certain type of funding for these projects in order to complete these projects. So this is, I guess, all these individual cash flow or schedules for each of the projects gives us this big picture one. Here, basically, you're seeing is what we've expense. Green is funding that we currently have through fiscal year 25 and how we're going to spend that down. As you see, it goes all the way through fiscal year 30, but then the majority of future funding, as the future funding need increases, that's going to start begins now in fiscal year 26, spiking in 27, as Barbara showed earlier in some of the slides. A lot of the projects just happen at the same time, and the only way we're going to be able to fund that is with debt financing, grant opportunities. If not, we'll have to find a way to stage those projects out because we don't have the resources. So thanks to that opportunity that we're striving to pursue in fiscal year 26, this is how we plan on spending some part of our project funds all in the near future. And then all that information, along with our operating needs and our personnel needs and expenses, we've been working with finance and our financial advisor to put that into our debt model. We're currently, very far along in our rate model. This is going to allow us to plan long term, right? Having the schedule, having the cash flows, to tie with our operating needs. We're going to know, what rate is it that we're going to need in the future years in order to fund this moving forward. With debt coming on board, late in 26, maybe early 27. Currently, we're also working with the city and our financial advisor for the policies for the debt issuance. Just kind of get on the same page. As when we go to market, based on that kind of rating metrics, we're working on finalizing what those figures would be. And like I said, we're pending debt issuance in fiscal year 26 in order to get all those projects that you saw funded for their construction phase that just all lined in fiscal year 27. Take it on. You're doing great job.
So that's a fast track walk through our budget. A stormwater utility fee that's fair, generates our revenue. We then identify where that goes in our operations, is what we do day to day, and then all the priority projects. Thanks to Barbara, we're going to come back next month for your input for more on the capital process ahead of going to city council with an update on the same. So we're very excited about that opportunity. I think that's going to be in March. That was in February. That's right. That's right.
Do you
So
have any idea what percentage you're gonna ask for, like percentage increase, like?
We're working through those options right now.
I'm sorry.
In terms of potential fee rate changes.
What is your proposal, like, you got 10% or?
Oh, for the rate increase, we're not quite there yet. We will be able to reveal that in form. We got some more work, but the CIP is a big part of that. And some of the, kind of credit rating assumptions that we need to work with finance, will go in to help with the step of that rate increases. So for example, when we go to market for a bond, one of the metrics that they look at is how much cash on hand do we have? And the better cash on hand financial picture we have, the better credit rating we get and the lower interest rate we'll get. So that's still something from a policy standpoint, we're working with our finance department that will go into the rate model that Javier's working. So we're not quite, we're working on it and we'll present it to you all in March. So that's a proposal before we take it to council at the budget workshop.
That's right, great. We're very excited about raising the level of service for our project's delivery. At the same time, doing that in a fiscally sound way. So our finance team, our budget teams are really working very closely with us on making sure that we're well within all of the financial parameters to be able to have a, a healthy level of debt. Not overburdened by any means. So we're excited about that. So going from around 13 million CIP to 30 or 31 next year. And then we'll likely stay at that range going forward and grow that over time as desired by the commission and council, of course, to meet the needs of Raleigh. So real quick, we kind of give us the highlights of operating capital. You've actually got in your package the entire FY26 CIP as well as the 10-year plan. I believe so. Take a look at that. Any questions, reach back out to us. And the sunshine is coming through here pretty bright. We're going to bring that more to you in March in terms of the final budget, total operations, that will pull in the CIP that you've already got, and then with that rate recommendations. So with that, any questions? Again, thank you all so much, and look for February and March coming back on more on the budget.
Here's a quick question, and should know this, but I assume there are things that if an individual's so inclined that they could implement, such like a rain garden or something, so they could lower that.
Yes.
That cost. You don't have to go into it in detail. I know we're like.
Thank you for that. Yes, we're actually, with your support and the commissioner's support, we're going to bring back to you. It's probably going to be in the March session, update on the fee credits program. So when residents do things like that, or a commercial or non-single family, they can get credit. Absolutely.
But that's the part that's coming up. I see in the topics.
Yeah.
for February, March.
Likely it's going to be March at this point. Bring that back to you. That'll be the fee credits update. We've also got updates for the Rainwater Rewards program that will be part of the fee credits that will come along with them. So yes, that's one thing we're continuing as we look at rates, keeping those affordable at the same time, making it convenient for property owners in ways that they can lower that. Thank you all, Commissioner, so much as always.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Javier, for the coffee. Yeah. We're at the end of our agenda. Steve's going to come with a PowerPoint on the silver cell. I just want to make a few comments about where we are. We're at Chavis Park. It's named after John Chavis, who was a black man who was freed during enslavement, and he came here in the early 1800s. It's remarkable, the status, because right before the Civil War, there were about 100,000 enslaved black people in Wayne County. He was a free person. This area is named after him. Chavis Heights, Chavis Park, Chavis Heights was a residential area because at its founding was outside of the city limits proper. It was not deemed a desirable place geographically for white residents, so this was zoned as a black community. And in 1974, the city released a study. This is a direct quote that the black residents in Raleigh, including those in Chavis Heights, Chavis Park, live in, and this is the quote, environmental degradation. And to see where we are now, this is the old carousel, but to see where we are now with the environmental upgrades, he's going to talk about silver cells, the GSI is nothing more than phenomenal that this place that was once called environmental degradation is now a place of abundance. And I love bringing my kids here. If you haven't been here on a hot summer day, it's worth it to see the kids on the splash pad, just laughing, having a good time. Certainly a place of joy. It hasn't always been a place of joy. Right, so I just wanted to give that kind of setting of where we are before Stephen presents. Then we'll adjourn, and you're free to go because the meeting is over. But we do have a tour if you wish to see some of the GSI installations here.
Yeah, thank you, Reverend. Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's a quick PowerPoint on the Chavis Park Silver Cell system. And it's definitely one of our more unique Raleigh Rainwater Rewards supported GSI. It's actually the only silver cell we have here through the Rainwater Rewards program. So quick set of slides. It's pretty bare bones. Feel free to ask questions. Also ask questions during the tour, however you want to approach it. I'd like this kind of living as I proceed. So here we go. So this, by the way, this is a drone footage during construction. This is the silver cell. We're located, just to orient you, it's facing north. We're just about right here, right now in this carousel. And that's the splash pad and construction, just to kind of give you that perspective. All right, so silver cell suspended system. What is suspended? It's the pavement that you see out there. Right outside this door is a very unique GSI that's kind of hidden in some ways. You'll see the tree system. And anyways, yeah, so what it is it's a suspended pavement system with essentially an underground bioretention basin underneath that pavement. And that pavement is supported by this silver cell engineered matrix, like a modular system that can support the above ground use up to 3 and 4 axle vehicles, very high end construction. This bioretention system treats impervious area from the main building. And I'll actually get into that in the next slide. But it's designed to intake about 90% of the storms we receive here. This silver cell system is a very unique and dynamic treatment system. It is bioretention, it is underground, but it also includes these trees that allow uptake. You have the filtration with the sand media, you have peak runoff reduction, you have volume storage, you have evapotranspiration, a lot of different activities. You have that bacterial microbial action. So very dynamic system. So here, this is actually just some cutoff from the as-built. And then here are some silver cell components. See that sort of modular system with the deck and the base and that post system that has void space to allow volume.
As-built is the design.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, we have the as-built for this. Yep. You'll see the sign out there. It's kind of our standard look. Once again, so we're located Walnut Creek Watershed. This is a 2,400 square foot silver cell system. It was approved by the previous commissions in 2017. It was constructed in 2021. The treatment area is roughly 19,200 square feet of rooftop. Some silver cell systems have like an impervious type pavement, but this one is just a straight intake.
What is the tree species?
So the tree species is a ginkgo tree. It's a good question too. And they choose those trees based off kind of resilience to different environments and drought tolerance, wet environments, that sort of thing. All right, so this is that overview layer. Once again, we're located in roughly northwest of this. So you have these downspouts coming. Here's that splitter essentially. So you have, this will go to the outfall and then everything else would go to the system located right here. It's a little cut off, unfortunately, but you can see in that manhole, there's kind of that concrete weir right here. And then that's the main intake into the SCM, the stormwater control method. So what this is indicating right here is during large storm events, I believe it's a 10-year storm or greater, it's going to bypass the actual system and go straight to the outfall. Oops, sorry about that. Little delay. Oh, James speaker. All right, so these are some photos during construction. So you can see the excavation roughly around 6 feet in depth. That pipe is the under drain of it. It's got 57 aggregate stone base where all that active and static activity and force is it's all going to enter into that base. And then here's a good example of that, the silver cell grid matrix system that's surrounded by that sandy bioretention media, sandy and organic bioretention media. All right, some more photos of construction. This was modified, but this is the main intake from the roof. And then as they construct it, you can see it's a distribution of that intake of that water throughout the system. So it's not some big fire hose blasting into one location. They're going to distribute it throughout that profile. And then here's a good example of kind of the finished product. You can see that sort of void ponding area between the pavement and the actual media.
Is that material?
I'm sorry, what?
What's the material?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's a high end, I don't know if it's HDPE, but it's some sort of a module, like a high end plastic. And then its strength is that deck and base, the matrix concept.
Because like if it got damaged, for example, would you go in there and?
Yeah, so actually maintenance is pretty difficult to access because there's no, this is only about 10 inches. And so, but the device itself is constructed for strength and for its use. So hopefully it's not getting damaged. I'll press too much here. There we go. All right, so this is your final product, which we'll see. Obviously during the daylight, we have our signs. So very low profile. You can see in these like ultra urban environments, you don't quite know even what's underground, below ground. And you can use that surface, that urban surface for whatever use you like a park. But below ground, here's roughly a 20 by 40 foot bioretention system that you may not even know is there. So very, very useful in these urban environments, very good for confined spaces and treatment where you're lacking space or you need to utilize that space. And those are those ginkgo trees. You can see kind of that sort of horseshoe looking leaf. Oops, once again. All right, so the next two slides are just good examples of some of the uses we've already had at this park. So you can see you have actual vehicles, lots of people, lots of events. These are literally parked right on the hill itself, guys. And then kind of your basic look. Here's roughly there is that excavation, that SCM device where the three ginkgo trees are located. Like I said, once again, very low profile, very unique device, and a very neat one. One of the more unique ones we've had through the Rainwater Awards program. That's it. Questions?
Thank you so much, Stephen.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn. Okay, motion second, all in favor? No opposition, very good. So it's optional if you have time to